Okay, so I kind of worked things out. It takes a while for it to generate the image, so I have that running right now. It's still trying to put it together, so that'll eventually pop up as an image. Instead of doing it gradually over time, it kind of does it all at once, so it's having to go through a pretty big process and then kind of spits out the final result. So we'll let that kind of cook for a little bit. So the code is it's a little bit crazy. I'll admit it. We'll run through it. Hopefully, I won't lose you during it. All right, so here's the image. So I like it. Kind of a cool effect. Depending, it's still kind of a randomized order on how the pixel's chosen. But once it's chosen, it's written, and then other things are written around it. So it kind of stacks up. Brightness still controls the size. I've added some other shapes. So here I have both the ellipse and a triangle being drawn. And definitely an abstract graphic here, and I like it. I actually like it. The image size makes a big difference. So I had another image that I was using that was way too big. And well, it wasn't way big, but it just takes a long time for it to do it. So this is only a 640, 480. And you know, it takes a minute or so for it to generate the whole thing. So not the speediest program. But anyways, I want to run through the code here, and I want to stress as well that you know, I just didn't type this out and it happened. This took some trial and error. Definitely some mistakes were made. I had to keep going back and trying to figure things out. So I just want you to know that it's, you know, it's the part of making a program like this is you have an idea. It sounds simple enough, but the practice of doing it, it took some stretching, and I'll show you where you'll see definitely where that happens. So let's try to do that. So let's look at. I'm going to close this down for now, which is probably not the best move, but. It'll give us a better view here of the screen, and let's see if we can follow along here. So top to bottom, a lot of the code is going to be similar, but we had to do some different things. So the new stuff here is that I'm going to have two different arrays. So I have an array for the X values, and I have an array for the Y values. And what I'm going to do is fill those up, and then I'm going to kind of shuffle it. If you think of like a deck of cards, I'm going to put them all in order, and then I'm going to shuffle it, and that's going to be able to randomize the order that they get chosen from, but it also prevents the duplication that we were getting from the randomization in the first example. Okay, so everything else here is the same. Here I'm loading the same image. Here is where I'm setting the arrays. So they're going to be the new int, and they're going to be based upon the width and the height of the image that you chose. Okay, so those are going to get filled up. The memory is going to get allocated for those depending on the size of the width and the height of the image that we're going to use. Okay, so this first loop is going to initialize the arrays, and they're going to put them all in order. Okay, so it's just going to be, you know, 0 through whatever that number is. Okay, so we're starting at 0 here. It'll go as long as there's the width of the image. We're going to update by 1. Okay, and so the pick X here with the I is going to equal whatever that number is. So the 0 index of the pick X is going to be 0. The Y, the 1 index is also going to be 1. So they're going to be kind of in order. So 0 through whatever is what we're going to initially set the values into our array with. And we're doing the same thing here with the Y array as well. Okay, just how to use different variables, but it's essentially the same type of loop. So we're populating the array with values. Okay, so they have stuff in those. And what we're going to do now is shuffle those so they're in a random order. Okay, and this is where things got weird. So there's an algorithm called an inside-out algorithm. It's a sorting algorithm, and so it just changes the order of it sort of randomly picks somewhere in the array and then copies that to another position. So it prevents the duplication, but it's also going to give us that sort of randomized effect. So every time we run this, the order that is chosen is going to be different. So there'll be slightly different different appearances to it. But so I'm running through the array here. We're starting at 1, and we're going through. Here's where we're picking a random variable, and it's going to be somewhere between whatever that length is. It's kind of crazy. So here's the first one, and so whatever the x is gets replaced by the random point, and the random point then equals whatever was in that. So they're just kind of swapping places. It's strange. I'm not expecting it. This was very difficult to kind of put together. I had to do some research on it. I don't fully understand it, but it seems to work. Okay, so I did it with smaller numbers. I did it with a smaller array and saw that, all right, yeah, it shuffles. I'm not getting duplication, so we're good to go. So now I'm doing it at this extreme length. And I'm doing the same thing. It's the same code here for the y coordinates as well. Okay, this code is pretty ugly. Well, I wouldn't say it's ugly, but it's not the most intuitive thing to follow. But here we are. We have a nested for loop. So again, I'm using an I as long as it's the pick length and the pick Y length and pick X length. We're going to find the location of those pixels. We're going to create a pixel based upon those two. Okay. So here's this follows the same formula. Here's our x, and we're going to add the y times the width of the image. Okay, so it's going to give us a location in our pixel array that we can use to gain the color values. So this is the same thing that we did before. It's just looking a little bit uglier because we're just taking the we're pulling from the array. So the array is already in a random order, and so we can just do it sequentially then by following these loops, adding one, and going through it. So we're finding a location for it, we're loading the pixels, we're getting the color data for those, we're still doing the same fill, we're still doing the same checks on those, and then I tried different shapes to be drawn to the screen to kind of create this, I don't know, low res image. So I find, what's nice is having the transparency, creating multiple shapes and having those kind of blend together. So again, I guess I will we'll run this. You'll see actually how long it takes to get going. Because it does it all at once. It doesn't build up as the other one did. It has to figure out, has to go through, 640 by 480, multiply those together. There's a lot of pixels to go through. And it's doing those one by one through these loops. So it's not the most efficient, but creating a sort of a static graphic, you could then output this, print this out, or use whatever once it's generated. So it doesn't have to be in real time. So I'm not too disappointed with that, with the performance. Having the nested loop just allows us to, to get both of these at once. I have the Y. Again, if you're thinking this pixel array as this long sequence, starting at 0 and going to whatever, allows us to get to the end of so a row is going to be the Y and the columns are going to be the X. And this allows us, so in this first loop, the Y is going to stay, let's say, at 0 as it's set here, and the X is going to be all the points between 0 and the width of the image. And so it's going to find all of those and find the color for those and draw those. So the order that these are in, these are going to be, I don't know what these are going to be. I'm not looking at any of those. I guess I could put in some print line statements, but they're going to be incredibly long to do that. Okay, let's see. So the image is drawn again, and you can kind of see where the triangles blend with some of the ellipse. I did a rectangle as well, which created some interesting results. So it's already kind of an abstract graphic to begin with, and then you put this other layer of abstraction on it. I kind of like it. I'm definitely a fan of it, so I think I'm going to keep this project and apply some other images to it, and go from there. So hopefully this clarifies some things. One of the things I want to stress is that with a project like this, you have an idea, you're trying to do it. It is trial and error of trying to figure these things out. It was not sort of just let me type and it came out perfectly all at once. It did take a while for me to do this. Especially the sorting was the hardest part. Once the sorting was done, kind of going through these different nested loops and getting the color values is pretty straightforward. With all of the variables, it looks probably a little convoluted, but if you substitute real numbers in there and go through it, step at a time, it should make sense. And so hopefully this clarifies the pixel array and some of the cool stuff that you can do by getting that color data from it, and some of the you can create your own image filters in a sense from being able to do that, to have that control with it. So hopefully you get a chance to play around with this, have fun with it, and hopefully you can come up with some things cool. If you do, please share them, put them up into the galleries, and let us see what you're doing.